Hey, and a very warm welcome to the Into the Light Web podcast with me, your hostess, Joanna Hunter, metaphysical teacher, spiritual life and business coach, published author, and the high priestess of the Light Web, a spiritual technology that will change your life. This is the place to be to talk everything under the light web, from consciousness, relationships, to money, to spiritual business, and everything in between. Hi, and a very warm welcome to a solo podcast, this time with me, Joanna Hunter. So welcome to the Into the Light Web podcast. And in this episode, I'm going to be telling you the biggest lessons that I have had from this extraordinary year and running my $1 million experiment. So I thought it would be fun to do an episode where I am really breaking down to you how everything has kind of gone this year and how things have unfolded this year. And I'm really excited to get into it. So in this episode, what I'm going to be telling you about, or what I'm going to be talking about, is really everything from the beginning of the journey of the $1 million experiment. So we launched the $1 million experiment in August of 2020. And we did a soft launch followed by a proper launch on the 1st of September. So the soft launch was only to my client base to start with. And then in September, we launched more officially. And very, very quickly, we began gaining massive momentum in filling up the experiment. And the numbers kept rising. And I had said to myself that, putting this together was, for me, an exercise in being able to hold the energy no matter what. And I had really, really sat with myself and said, can I put this extraordinary offer together? Can I put this together at the price that I was offering it at? Can I hold the energy for an entire year? Because it's very easy, and this is probably lesson number one that I want to share with you, is that it's very, very easy to be very gung-ho in the beginning of something and say, sure, no problem, I'm going to be able to hold the energy. And then as the year progresses, we get this kind of energy of like, want, where we're not so into it anymore. And I thought, would I be able to hold the energy for an entire year? So I really, before I even launched the $1 million experiment, I really sat with myself and really tuned into, could I hold the vibration? Could I hold the energy? Am I able to hold it for a whole year? And I came to the decision that I would be able to hold the energy if there would be 200 people within the experiment. If 200 people signed up for this experiment, I felt I could really trust myself to hold the energy for an entire year. And so that was our kind of minimum goal, our first goal for launching this. Now, it took myself and my team from the beginning of January. We began working on this project in January of 2020. So all of January 2020, we were working on this project. We were setting it up behind the scenes. There was a massive learning curve. We'd run affiliate programs, very small ones, but we'd never run an affiliate program the size of the affiliate program that we ran for my $1 million experiment. So that was a huge learning curve. And and we're really glad that we kind of figured that out. And one of the tools that we used for that was Thrivecart. So we'll pop the link in the show notes for Thrivecart. And that's what we used. And it was also the cart system that allowed us to process payments, which worked out really good as well. So then, obviously, we start gaining momentum after August, and then September we start gaining even more momentum. Then there's a kind of like a lull and a dip, which we were expecting in signups through the kind of October and November. Towards the end of November, it starts picking up again. December, it picks up massively. because now we're just 1 month away from this project starting, and it's picking up massively. And then by the time we close the cart on the 31st of December, and I want to make a note on that actually, we closed the cart obviously on New Year's Eve, at midnight at New Year's Eve. So it was literally New Year is when we closed the cart. In hindsight, maybe not always the best place to open and close a cart. Because the internet is very, very busy on that day. So yeah, that was definitely another lesson, another learning curve that we learned, but it was all good. We ended up at just under 2,000 people. And I was really adamant. I'm one of these people that if I say I'm going to do something, I do it. I don't like a lot of the marketing tactics that are seen in the online world. I'm not a super fan of people saying, the cart's closing, then it's like, oh, no, it's not, and things. So I'm very, very kind of firm, usually in my boundaries of like, no, if I say that that's when it's closing, it's closing. However, the next morning on the first day of January, we were overwhelmed with the amount of messages. We had at least 50 messages across all our platforms, so our inboxes were really filled. We had loads of emails from people saying, please, please, please let us into the experiment. We really want to be part of it. And I was really, I'll be really honest with you, in the beginning, I was like completely adamant. No, that was the cutoff day. And my lovely husband said to me, Joanna, I really think that you need to go and have a cup of tea, maybe have a little meditation and speak with Skylar, my spirit team, and see, check in with the spirit side and see what they say, because there's all these people, they want to be part of this, have a little word, basically. So I sat down and I had a meditation, and Skylar reminded me that the first week in January didn't actually officially start till the 4th, and that the remaining last 3 days were actually part of week 52 of the year that we were, the year 2020. So I thought, okay, I can still feel like I'm going to be really, really in integrity if I open the cart for another 3 days. And it had been no intention to do that whatsoever. So we did that. On the 1st of January at 7 o'clock, as promised, we did our welcome call. The welcome call was insane. It was over 1,000 people on the live stream. So it was about 1,000, I think at one stage it was 1,400 people were live with us, which was absolutely phenomenal. The energy on that call was amazing. And it was so much fun. And I think, for me as a spiritual teacher that's been a spiritual teacher for as long as I've been a spiritual teacher, it was such a delight to be able to do a call and facilitate a call where there was so many people on the call, and it just sparked something in so many people. And literally directly after that call, things went bananas at HQ. At one point we were receiving 5 sales a minute, and it was absolutely crazy how many people were joining the experiment. It was really hard for the team to keep up, but my team absolutely did me so proud, and really pulled together as a team and teamworked, and we were individually onboarding people in the Facebook group, and they were just like amazing at onboarding everybody, making sure everybody was onboarded and kind of welcomed into the group and all the things. So it was really an incredible experience for me, and it was an incredible experience for me as a leader of a team as well, to see my team pull together like that. And I was so grateful and so thankful for the team, because otherwise it would have been myself and my husband and that would not have been fun. But in ends, it was really, really fun. I went to bed that night on the 1st And I was sitting on the edge of my bed and I was really like trying to anchor in the feelings that were coursing through my body. And I've always run my business in this energy of ease, joy, and flow. It's been, it's part of the book, the My $1,000,000 Experiment book. I talk about how it's my computer, and I always ask the question, will it bring me ease? Will it bring me joy? Will it bring me flow? And I realized that it had one of the most incredible, easiest, phenomenal days of my life on the 1st of January 2021. And I sat there in those feelings and I anchored them in, and I said to myself, my thoughts, my body was like, what if it always got to be this easy? What if it always got to be this easy? What if it was just, this idea that it could always be this easy, and that what if I just chose it right here, right now? And something on that day shifted inside of me. It was a huge shift inside of me, and I could feel it. I could feel it taking root and anchoring inside of me. And I anchored in the feelings, and I had so much gratitude in my heart. And I went to bed that night. I woke up to hundreds more people having joined us in the experiment. And over the next 2 days to the 3rd, midnight on the 3rd, when we officially closed the cart, the proper official date of closing the cart, at the $25 investment, we had got 4,199, nearly at the 200. We were one off the 200. And I had achieved my first 6-figure launch on a $25 product, which was absolutely insane. And then we began the journey of the experiment. And here we are in the last month of the year, in December of 2021. It's been an absolutely extraordinary journey of growth. I, by all accounts, quantum leaped, even though I am not a fan of the word quantum leap, because I think it adds an air of mystery to something that isn't mysterious at all. It's quantum leaping is a lot of increments moving in fast succession. So I talk about the law of increments in the My $1,000,000 book. And we have to be willing to acknowledge all of the increments, because if we don't actually activate the law of momentum and get things moving faster. And it's the law of momentum that is responsible for what people call a quantum leap. And by all accounts, we'd had one of those, but in reality, we'd had a lot of increments in quick succession. So January was this incredible month of really just calibrating to this brand new energy of like suddenly being in front of thousands and thousands of people. And although I was used to being in front of hundreds of people, which I'd already built a multiple 6-figure business from the previous years, but suddenly to be in this business that was really thrust into its 7-figure year was just absolutely incredible. And so that required a calibration. So what is a calibration? So that's definitely one of the biggest lessons that I've learned from this year, is to take your time over calibrating to a new energy. When things shift very quickly and very rapidly, there's going to be a time where you need to just literally adjust and calibrate to that. And that's going to require you to have new level of boundaries, new level of ownership, new level of permissions. And so we walked with a lot of that. It was very, very interesting, the experiment. So as the experiment started kicking off, we basically did every single week, you got a lab note in the experiment. So every week there was a brand new lab note, and the lab note basically had a small mindset or experiment or something, intuition thing that you could try at home yourself. So every single time that we did this, there was like a small little experiment for you to try at home or to do something at home. So we worked away with that every week, and then every single day there was a new post in the group. And then every week we did this podcast episode for everybody. And one of the things that we really, really had to reiterate in the early days of the experiment was we had to really reiterate, like, it's self-led. And this was as much for my team as it was for the people who are in the experiment, because, you know, how else are we going to achieve a goal like $1 million if we can't lead ourselves, you know? And it's one of these things, it's like, if we can't lead ourselves to simply navigate a Facebook group or to do the more simpler things in life, then how are we going to get to an energy and a vibration of where we're going to be able to hold the frequency of being able to navigate it, attracting in $1 million in 1 year? And the answer is, you're going to really struggle to attract in that $1 million if we can't be self-led. So the self-led was really the first big lesson and that required me to step up into my next level of leadership as well, because I am a real nurturer, and I do love to nurture my people, and I do love to like fix it and sort it out, and I'm one of what I call life's fixers, which many people in my communities are real fixers. We tend to be the fixers of other people and help and fix things and stuff like that. And so for me to be able to hold the standard of self-led at some points during the journey felt quite excruciating, to be able to hold the vibration and frequency and to hold myself to that standard too, and not dive in and be like, hey, here's how you can do this, or hey, let's do, instead to actually say, okay, the journey here is self-led, and how would you lead yourself in this instead? So it was quite like difficult some days to navigate that, I'll be fully honest. But for me, what that meant was being able to hold the next level of my own business as well, because the more that I really tried to facilitate everything and facilitate all the time, the harder that was going to be to hold the next level of my business. So not only did I do that for me, I did that for everybody else, to hold that as well, because I knew that if I put the onus onto the people who were in the experiment, and it was for them to navigate the group, and it was for them to really lead themselves through this, they were more likely to receive the result, which was to create $1 million in a year. But there was a lot of people who struggled with being self-led, and that was eye-opening. And also as well, really kind of put into perspective that I really began to start to realize that there was several steps before you could actually, even with this $1 million plan, without being self-led, it was going to be an issue and it was going to be a struggle. So that was one of the first things that was really coming through on the data, was the things. Now, there's many reasons why people are struggling with being self-led. The number one reason that I believe that people struggle with being self-led is the fact that nobody's ever really modeled that or taught them how to do it. I know that, growing up, it was not something that I was super modeled for me, and it was not something that was, I had a mom who was absolutely amazing and did a lot for me, but that did not do a lot for me being self-led in the early days of my life, right? Because I had somebody that would help me out all the time. And so self-led is something that I've had to learn myself, and it's a process that I've had to learn myself. So that was definitely another one of the big lessons that came through. What was really interesting was how people responded to the plan. That was so exciting. When people, we created the dress code of bringing your dollar. That was all like, come in your finance and bring your dollar, your pound, or your euro, whatever currency you were in, for the opening call. And the mind-blowingness of when people realized that holding that pound, holding that dollar, holding that euro in their hand, whatever currency they had, that they were 20 steps away from becoming a legit millionaire. that was, I think, for many, many people, very like a moment of like, oh my God, this is literally places this right in my backyard. Like, this is, wow. Like, I had no idea that I could actually be so close to being a millionaire. And that was really beautiful to see people being so activated by that. And I know that a lot of people have, taken the plan and worked through it literally. And other people have taken the plan and thought, okay, how can I maybe work at the bigger levels in the plan? Because in the book, we outlay, different ideas and suggestions and things like that. So that was another really amazing lesson, was that, just a simple piece of information like that just a little tidbit of, you double that dollar or euro again and again and again, and you end up in 20 steps a millionaire, which is so mind-blowing. And I think this is one of the things that going forward now, as we move into the My Million Dollar experience, it's going to be something that we're really going to focus on that money journey, and really like, how do we unleash that? How do we leverage this information? How do we leverage this journey, basically? How do we begin to leverage this? And so I'm really excited for the experience of, really going through the My Million Dollar teachings, but going at a deeper level, and going into the next level, because I think a lot of people have shifted this year in the My Million Dollar experiment. And as they've shifted, they began to realize like, oh, okay, this is more than I just need a strategy. And that was one of my dearest hopes from this experiment, was that people would understand that there is an entire internal game. And I love teaching on money. I love teaching about money, and I love teaching the mindset. But what I really love the most out of everything is I love teaching people how to leverage that internal game, to really, really activate their magic, to really activate themselves as a self-led human that can achieve anything on this world. And I think that's sometimes more valuable than money. Because it allows you to open up experiences, and there is some experiences in this world that money can't buy, and it will actually give you the freedom of having the money and being able to leverage that, which is what I really love. And so it's been fun to see that. The podcast episodes have been so fun for me to record, to talk with people at this level of business. Some of them were multi-millionaires, self-made multi-millionaires, and to be able to speak with them and to see how their minds were working, to see what their thought processes were. And it became very, very clear to me through the interviewing processes that there was, I knew that there was two main energies at play, that some people hustled their way to the money, and they were, they worked very, very hard for their finances. Other people had done that, been there, worn the t-shirt, and realized there's got to be another way, there's got to be a better way, and then created a business that was more in what I would call source alignment. And those were I have to be honest, those were my favorite interviews, because I think there is, there's a lot of people hustle, and you can achieve extraordinary results hustling. I've done it myself, but I think it takes an extraordinary person to achieve beautiful results while being totally in alignment and in integrity with the life that they want to live. And for me, it's about playing for it all. It's not about playing for just one piece of it. Like, if I could just have the money, or if I could just have the relationships that I wanted, or if I could just live in the home that I wanted, or if I could just drive the car that I wanted. For me, one of the things that really excites me about the work that I do is like playing for quality of life, that you can have it all. And not in some sort of cheesy description of that, but like, what is your all? Really tuning in and tapping into what is important to you and defining that. And some of the entrepreneurs that I interviewed were really amazing, because you could see that they'd gone down that journey, maybe the hustle journey first, and then be like, oh, this didn't really work for me. And then they pivoted and changed. And the other thing that I loved, that I learned a lot from, is how many of the entrepreneurs were multi-passionate. And I think multi-passionate people, I absolutely adore and love multi-passionate people, but I really think we get a hard time. We get a real hard time because the people police love to police a multi-passionate energy. They're like, what, another business? Oh, you're always starting something new. Like, these are ways that a multi-passionate person is policed by people. And what was lovely to see was these highly, highly successful individuals that many of them had not only nailed the money side of life, but they had also nailed extraordinary qualities of life. A couple of the interviews, the backdrops were absolutely awe-inspiring. These people were like literally living a holiday lifestyle 24/7. It was really beautiful. And and the way that they did business, and so many of them did business in a way where they were dancing to the beat of their own drum. And this is another that really reiterated to me that, in the beginning of this experiment, where I was really having to step up in my leadership to say to people, listen, no, it's self-led. You have to step up to this self-leadership. This is where you have to meet us on the playing field of self-led. Listening to these entrepreneurs, I realized again, it was like confirmation for me that, yep, absolutely 100%, this was the right way to lead, because a lot of these entrepreneurs did business in their own way. They didn't follow a cookie cutter formula. They were leading themselves. And so that skill again of being self-led was, again, so, so important. And I knew it was important, but to see it confirmed again and again and again, some of these people were creating things that had never been seen before. And they were doing business in a way and having exponential growth that maybe had never been seen before. And that was incredibly exciting to hear that confirmed again and again, of the self-leadership being such an important piece of this journey. So then the exciting part for us was the data collection points. So collecting in the data and seeing where people were at. And again, the issue of self-leadership came up again, as it did a lot. But also as well, what was really incredible was just seeing how many people's minds were beginning to shift. Like, a lot of people started this experiment with this idea of like, that $1 million seems so awfully far away, and I don't know if I'm capable of this. And then we were seeing through the data a shift happening, like a big shift happening. And as people were going through the experiment, we could start to see that their minds were becoming more pliable to the idea that, yeah, I could generate big wealth. And that was really fun. That was super fun, because that was opening up the possibilities for other humans to do extraordinary things. And so me and my team were kind of like, every time that we were reading the responses and things that were coming through on the surveys, it was really fun to see the people that were like, yeah, I totally can feel a shift or a change. There was people who absolutely who filled our inboxes and came to us with the most extraordinary stories, like people who had big plans that suddenly the time frames on those plans began to collapse, and they got plans that they'd had in motion for a long time. They were achieving that 2-3 years earlier than they had planned on their plan. One lady wrote to us and said that she got a kitchen fitted that was just not in the plan for the next 5 years for this home renovation project that she'd been working on for a long time. And that was incredible. Another woman wrote to us and told us that she applied the principles of My $1 Million Experiment, all the principles of the book, and applied it to her health instead. And she had been on the organ transplant list, and she had been taken off the organ transplant list and told she didn't require a liver transplant. She'd healed her body. Like, that blows my mind. It actually makes me very emotional to even think that my work has had that level of impact on another human being. It's beyond anything that I could ever have comprehended that this experiment would bring. Literally saved a life. Like, because organ transplantation is, it's, although we've been doing it a while, it's still in its infancy, and organ rejection is a very high possibility for people, and lots of complications and problems. And the fact that this woman had completely avoided all of that and her body had healed shows not only the testament to the absolute incredibleness of the human mind, the incredibleness of the human body's ability to heal itself. It is beyond anything that I could have anticipated coming from this experiment. We've had loads of people reach out to us and just tell us that they think about money. They've changed their relationship with money in a completely and utterly different way. And if you're listening to this podcast, leave us a review and let us know if your relationship with money has changed. Even from maybe just listening to these episodes, or maybe you're in the experiment and you've been like, yeah, my relationship has changed a lot. The biggest thing that we were kind of anticipating this, and I don't know if this created like a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy or not, but we were anticipating that obviously as the year moved on, that the engagement in the group would begin to wane. And that tends to be like a normal thing throughout, like whether you're running a short program or whether you're running a year-long program. People are very gung-ho in the beginning, and I myself do exactly the same thing. I sign up for the thing. I'm like, let's go, it's go time. And then a few years, not a few years, but a few months down the line, the energy can start to wane a little bit. And of course, that's happened inside the $1 Million Experiment. Every time that we issued a survey, less and less people began replying to it. And we had anticipated that. And it was, again, this kind of thing. And again, I don't know if we created a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy there or not. So that is something I'm going to have to sit and ponder with my journal, whether, did our expectation of it create it? So there's another lesson for you to unpick for yourself. Maybe your expectation of something created it. And so is it maybe in our best interest to expect great things instead of expecting numbers to wane, which is what we did. And of course we got it. So as a sacred creator of your reality, maybe our own thought process created that reality in that instance. But my highlight of this entire experiment, I think, has been interviewing Anka, who is the lady who reached $1 million. And she did it in 8 months. And that was huge. That was absolute highlight, because listening to Anka's story was so incredible, and it was really what I had prayed for. That's what I had prayed for when I first started the experiment, was that I would love to shift somebody's mindset so utterly and powerfully that they could create a result that they had began the year with not believing was possible for them. And that's exactly what Anka's story reflected, was that she had started the year kind of thinking, well, I would really just like financial freedom, not really knowing what it looked like, not really knowing. It was a year that could have really messed her up with COVID, in the fact that she had a business where it went to other people's houses, and she had a business where she had other people who went to other people's houses to do eco cleaning, and and of course with lockdown, not your friend when you run a business like that, and so it could have been a year that it could have spelled a lot of disaster for Anka and her family. And instead, she created $1 million in 8 months, which is so incredible. And one of the things that I think, again, it really brought home like the most important lessons, which is to be self-led, because she read the book 3 times cover to cover. And, you know, in the interview that we have with her, which we'll link in the show notes as well, is that she really basically said, well, you know, it's all in the book. And it is. I really did pour it all into the book. It is all in the book. And reading that book cover to cover, and she read it 3 times, you know, to really absorb the lessons. And a lot of the lessons that I popped in that book were, you know, my own money journey. And just to share some of my money journey from anyone who's listening to this and doesn't really know. So between the ages of 23 and 26, I built 4 6-figure and multiple 6-figure businesses. And then I worked in them all. And the first business that I got rid of was my cafe. I had it for 2 years, and my heart really wasn't super in it. So I took the premises for the cafe and expanded my designer clothing business, which was my first business that I opened, and I expanded that. At the height of that business, we were doing about £500,000 a year, pounds, UK pounds a year. And then I successfully, after my burnout, I had a huge burnout. After my burnout, I successfully sold that business, and I had also sold my shoe shop by that time as well, my partnership. I sold it to my business partner in that business, and I kept my spiritual events company. And then I was left, after my burnout, I was left with a lot of chronic illness. So I had, I don't know who comes up with these names, but I had chronic unexplained pain syndrome, which was basically I had pain in most of my body, all of my joints, all of my body. We had no idea what would flare up, but it would flare up, and it would have these giant flare-ups of where I would be very, very inflamed and in staggering amounts of pain that even really quite heavy-duty painkillers couldn't touch. And then, as if that wasn't hard enough to navigate, I was navigating chronic fatigue, where some days it was difficult to even speak. I would slur my words because it was so hard, and I was so tired to be able to even, I've never experienced tiredness like it. And anyone that's going through chronic fatigue has my absolute compassion, and know that there is life on the other side of chronic fatigue. I guarantee you that. And, you know, my part of my journey was learning to heal myself from these things. And then on top of that, I had some autoimmune hellishness. And as if all of that was not stressful enough, I was £120,000 in debt in 2006 at this point. So I was £120,000 in debt. And around about 2006, I began teaching the law of attraction. I was telling a lovely gentleman who was part of my healing team, part of the team, that he was an acupuncturist and an Ayurvedic doctor. And I had just newly discovered the law of attraction, and I was really excited about it. And I was telling him in one of our sessions that he was treating me for all of my chronic illnesses and everything. And I was telling him how excited I was that I had found this thing called the law of attraction. Had he heard of it? And he looked at me and he said these words, and this was a very much a pivotal moment in my life. He looked at me and he said, Joanna, you know, if you really, really want to know a subject, you teach it. He says, because when you teach something, you will learn it at a deeper level. And as you teach another person, you will also be taught. And I thought, wow. And I skipped out of there. Which is another testament to how powerful a healer he was, because I'd gone in there feeling quite sorry, but I was excited about this law of attraction development. And I began teaching law of attraction in Borders bookshops in 2006. And it was absolutely incredible. Like, I just felt like I was activating a knowledge that was deep within my soul. And it was such an exciting journey. But my family and I at this time, we were living on welfare. But even though we were living on welfare, we managed to pay down £90,000 of that debt in 2 years while on welfare, which was absolutely insane when you think how, we were able to leverage that and do that. And it was all through the law of attraction. We had done that. Then I went in and had in my aftermath, I had several operations, including a huge operation that had a 1 in 100 mortality rate. And that was when I finally decided to surrender into bankruptcy for the last 30,000 that we had, because I couldn't take the risk that my husband would be left without a wife and 2 small children and to raise them. And then a massive debt on top of that. So I made the decision to do that, and in a way it was the right decision, although it was an extremely difficult decision to make. And then became, the journey of rising again and healing myself. And I went on this giant healing journey, huge. And then in 2016, I founded this business that we're in now. And I took all of my business acumen and everything and moved it online. And I'd been an entrepreneur at that point for several years, nearly 20 years at that point when I moved online. And I moved everything online. And very quickly, within 2 years, I had retired my husband from his day job. I brought my daughter home to work with us as well. So we were now a team of 3, and we were just growing exponentially. And then in 2020, obviously, we launched the $1 Million Experiment. We were at that point a multiple 6-figure business. And then in this year, it has been absolutely extraordinary growth. So in October this year, we passed the $1 million mark for doing $1 million in 24 months. So this business is a $1 million business. It has created $1 million months in a 24-month period. And as we're recording this episode, we are very, very close to our next big milestone goal, which is $800,000 in 1 year. So we're on track for a business that is going to code for $1 million for sure. So that is a bit of my money story, and all of it has been through everything that I've taught. So everything that I had taught, everything that I had learned during this whole journey, I kind of poured this in to the My $1 Million book. And I poured it in to the book and created this incredible piece of work that I really feel has the potential to awaken that goal of $1 million inside another human. And and it did with Anka. And we've had several people reach out to us and say that they are at step 19, so they have made over $500,000 this year, which was not expected for them either. It is really incredible, and to be able to take somebody on a journey like that, the internal shift of going from a 6-figure business, or going from a business that's maybe not making very much at all, to shifting into a business that is capable of making 6 figures or multiple 6 figures, is huge mindset shift required for that. And I just feel so utterly proud of myself and my team for the hand that we've held in that, in many people's lives, as many people's lives have been transformed by the $9 Million Experiment. And I know that the My $1 Million Experience, which we launch on the 1st of January, is going to transform even more people's lives. And I'm excited to have these really, really epic money conversations inside the My $1 Million Experience, because for me, money represents freedom. For me and my family, it's created massive freedom in our lives, freedom of choice, freedom to do more things that we want, freedom to help more causes that we want to be part of, freedom to express on a bigger, brighter scale. And I know that if I can help others to do that, that is a very fulfilling way to spend my time in helping other people. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode on some of the biggest lessons. I think the biggest takeaway from this is how important being self-led is. It is of utmost importance if you want to create a life by design, a life that works on every level. I think also as well, investing has been something that has been huge for me in my growth as well. And this year was no different. I invested in mentors, I invested in working with people, and I invested in elevating my own energy so that I could hold the energy for others. And I think if you are creating a business in which you are going to hold energy for other people, investing in yourself is the best investment that you can make. And that's all I got for you today. I hope you enjoyed this. Leave me a comment below in the comments, or let us know if this was resonating with you or not.